The main thing you need to know about the Yakuza Like a Dragon games is that they have incredible plot. Seriously, look at that plot. Oh my god, I love the plot. Okay, jokes aside, as you can see, these games have incredibly rich worlds, deep characters, and stories that poke at universal human conditions like joy, suffering, happiness, sadness. Yeah, it's maybe like pretty much those two, but it's enough to make anyone laugh and cry. For reals though, the Yakuza Like a Dragon games do something pretty unique. They give you a window into a world that spans around 40 to 50 years across the mainline games. You get to see the world and characters change in a way that you don't usually see in gaming or really any fiction in general that's not super long form, and this is all set against the backdrop of the Japanese criminal underworld. It tells extremely compelling stories, and for most of the main series so far, you play as Kazuma Kiryu, and you might take a look at this guy and think, ooh, this guy looks like a 13-year-old's idea of what's cool, and alright, first impressions, you know, but you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Kiryu is an ogre, which is to say he's an onion, which is to say he's a cake, which is to say he's got so many different layers. And seeing his story play out across multiple decades is incredibly compelling, it's super interesting, it hooks you from the start and doesn't let go, and it's just amazing what they're able to do with a single character. Of course the games have other characters too, but he goes on to become one of video games' greatest protagonists, and that's not even an exaggeration. Now in the newer games, you play as Ichiban Kasuga. He's this lovable, goofable screw-up who doesn't say the word goofable because that's not a word, but he's really inspirational and sort of reminds you that it's never too late to start living life on your own terms or to sort of start working towards your own goals. It's really strange how such a comedic character can actually be so inspirational, and he's actually the lore reason for why his games are turn-based instead of action brawlers. So it's not a spoiler or anything, but he basically sees any sort of adventure or quest as a JRPG. Bro thinks he's in Dragon Quest, but for real. He is that guy. So he treats every sort of combat encounter or situation as a JRPG, which is why these games are turn-based. It's an incredible gimmick that A, doesn't overstay its welcome, and B, lets the developers do anything they want with these games. One of the best aspects of the Like a Dragon Yakuza games is that they never forget that they're video games. They never forget that video games can be silly, they can be goofy, they can be serious, they can be anything you want them to be. Every aspect of these games leans into this, from gameplay to presentation to individual mechanics or systems or just how you interact with the world. And no matter how serious the main plot gets, you always have options to engage with loads of side stories or activities that are usually humorous, silly, or sort of fun just for fun's sake. You know, you're playing a video game, you want to be having a good time. And yeah, some of these side stories can also be tearjerkers and make you sob long into the night. The side stories are often sort of poorly choreographed and they reuse the same assets and animations to a hilarious level. But none of that matters because of how well written they are. They're so compelling. It's engaging as hell, and you'll be thinking about some of them for years. You won't even notice the reused assets or animations. It just goes to show how important writing and storytelling is in a format that kind of relies on it, or at least a game in the format that relies on it. Now, one question I get all the time is, which Yakuza should I start with? Because there are about 75 million of these games. So it's a tough question, but my recommendation is to either start with Yakuza 0, which is sort of a prequel to the whole series, Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is technically number 7 in the mainline series, but it's when they introduced the new protagonist Ichiban Kasuga, and it's sort of like a soft reboot for the series by introducing the new main character. You can also start with the spin-off series called Judgment, which is quite excellent. Now, I've talked about how amazing these games are and how great this franchise is, but I do have two major critiques. Number 1, these games do not let you beat up children until Judgment 2, which is called Lost Judgment, and my second critique is, these games could always use more plot.